Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacy Scott, the Marketing and Client Relations Coordinator here at Wickham Financial and Insurance Services, and I'm your host for today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great lunch and learn scheduled for today, and I think that you're going to enjoy it a lot. Susanne Wickham Cook is going to be joining Graham and I. And Suzanne's a member of our risk management team, and she's going to be talking about some considerations to keep in mind as we head into these summer months and the potential liability that we need to be prepared for. And then, as always, you'll see Graham's calendar pop up periodically throughout the presentation. So if you would like to schedule some time with Graham or another member of our team, just click on that calendar and select the day and the time that work best for your schedule, and we'll get that taken care of. Also, we have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation today. So if you happen to come across any questions come to mind throughout the presentation that you would like for us to answer, then just type them into the Q&A section of the chat box, and I'll make sure that those get addressed at the end of the session. And with all of that taken care of, I'm going to turn things over to Graham and enjoy today's webinar.
Hey, thank you, Stacy. Thank you to all of our viewers who are on the call. From time to time, and we haven't for a while had our insurance team, our risk management team on the call. So we're glad to have Susanne on the call today, talking, I think, about some really important topics. And that's just good old-fashioned risk management. What added liabilities do we have to be mindful of and aware of as we go into the summer months? We're entertaining more, we're hosting more, maybe a little more casual in our approach, but the risks are still there. So the reason why I flicked on the wealth management process for our viewers, or if you're new to Wickham, we take a holistic or total approach to managing wealth. So we look at 5 core steps to managing your wealth through all stages of your life, through all aspects of your life. So pre and post retirement planning, investment manage, how to grow what you worked hard for, how to distribute that as needed. We talk about estate planning, how to have control when that might be limited before you pass away and after you pass, so it goes to the ones and the things that you care about most. And also tax strategies, how to keep more of what you work hard for so we can limit tax liabilities or tax situations down the road. But last but not least, risk management. Risk management is really key. So think about it this way. When we're talking about risk management, we're talking about insurance. And when we're thinking about insurance is how do we mitigate risk and transfer a portion of that risk to another institution so we don't bear all the blunt of whatever occurred. So that's what we're talking about with risk management, and we're bringing insurance into the picture. That might be personal insurance from your home, cars, toys, valuables, all the way to your business coverage, your workers' compensation, your general liability, life, health, long-term care, annuity can all fall within that risk management strategy. So I don't take up too much more time. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Susanne. Again, Susanne is a key managerial role in our risk management team on the insurance side. So without further ado, Susanne, why don't you jump in and talk about some added liabilities as we go into the summertime?
Sure. Thank you, Graham. And thank you for joining us today. Yeah, just in the summertime, people seem to be out and about more, getting together with family, friends, taking trips, whatever it may be. The sun is out longer, so daytime, you have more hours in the day to be able to get out and do more things. So summertime risk concerns is what we wanted to talk about, and ways you can handle the risk possibly before it happens. It's mindful to be of summer risk and risk prevention to protect your assets, protect your family, and to protect others. So just to go in some details, some things we wanted to hit on was automobiles. Of course, people take more trips. The roads are busier. Like I said, the day's longer, so there's going to be more cars on the road. You want to be sure that you have enough insurance coverage. And I hear a lot of times people want the cheapest thing, because it is expensive and rates are going up, unfortunately, but the minimum amount is not always the best. So you want to be sure while you are out on the road, you do have good coverage. You want to be sure that you have enough coverage that would cover an accident in case it were to happen. Be sure that all the drivers that are going to be driving your vehicles are listed on your policy. If you're going to be taking a trip and you need to rent a car, you're going to need to be sure your policy has the coverage that could extend to a rental car. I always recommend to people, though, the safest way to cover all the aspects of a rental car is to purchase the rental car's insurance policy. And it's also called a loss damage waiver. But sometimes there's a gray area when the insurance extends from your policy to a rental car. Just say that you totaled the rental car, therefore they are unable to rent that car. So they're losing money on that car. And sometimes your current auto policy would not cover that little detail. So it's always best just to purchase their policy, play it safe.
Hey,
And
Suzanne,
yeah,
1 second on, and it's probably a perfect slide to be on. I heard a statistic about 1 in 10 drivers in the Atlanta metropolitan area. And as anyone knows that drives our roads, we are probably one of the most congested, if not accident-prone cities in the United States. And 1 in 10 drivers are uninsured. How is that? How does that translate to our viewers, our listeners, in terms of what coverage they need to be mindful of?
that's a great point, because uninsured motorist is not required in the state of Georgia to be purchased, but if a vehicle hits you that is uninsured, like you were stating, or if they hit you and their insurance, if just say they have minimum state required liability limits, if those limits are not enough to pay for your medical bills or your vehicle, then your uninsured motorist would pick up and help you to pay for those additional bills. But if you don't have uninsured motorist on your policy, then you would not have any coverage for yourself and you would be held liable for the additional costs. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, also these teen drivers seem to be the ones that have the most distractions and more involved in accidents. And, not to say that this is their fault, but it's just from inexperience. It can be distractions from having their friends in the car or texting or talking. And even adults are guilty of the same thing. So just during the summer months, summertime when roads are busier, be sure that you're just paying extra attention for distractions or driving hazards, and being sure that everyone is allowed to drive in your household. I think that's about it for the statistics there. We wanted to hit on summer toys. So it's really fun to get out on the lake in the summertime or to get your motorcycle out, go four-wheeling, whatever it may be. When boating, you can put a small boat on a homeowner's policy. It depends on the insurance company, but some of them will allow a small boat. But the safest way to go is to just purchase a boat policy that has liability. And then, put comp and collision on it if you're worried about it getting stolen or if it's in an accident. It's always better to go with the full policy to cover your toy is what we're referring to it as, but your boat or your ATV or your camper. And in these boating accidents, there's a lot in the summertime. There's fires that we see that the boats are having, engine fires or boats running into each other and people are not just being cautious about drinking while you're boating. It's just as important as when you're operating a vehicle, not to be drinking alcohol. But be sure when you're boating, you have your life jackets, you have a fire extinguisher. Just be sure everyone is licensed that might be operating your boat to protect yourself. Because if you have a lot of friends in your boat and there's an accident, you want to be sure that you have enough coverage. You can, if you get an umbrella policy, that would give you an additional $1 million. And it's pretty inexpensive But it would cover over any of the policies that you list. So a boat policy, auto, home, anything that you might have insurance on. Um, so here we are with the ATVs and the motorcycles. Motorcycles, it's not that you're being unconscious, but sometimes they're just hard for vehicles to see. So, I mean, it drives me crazy when motorcycles come barreling up the middle of the lane and they don't sit in traffic like, abiding by the same rules. So you have to be cautious for them just because they're harder to see. ATV and dirt bikes, be sure you're wearing your helmets, your protective equipment. Same with motorcycles. The more protective equipment you have on, the more protection you're going to get for yourself. And
Hey, Susanne, can I also add a point? I don't know if many of our viewers go down to the beach or they go down to maybe some congested, family-oriented beach areas. But I notice a lot of times, the cars are parked on both sides of the road. People are riding their bikes, looking to have a good time, but they don't always see someone walking out from behind a car to walk across the crosswalk. They don't see, or maybe they don't get off their bike. Maybe they lose control a little bit. I've seen accident time and time again happen in some of the beach areas where the cars are parked on both sides of the road. And it's not something that you think about, but maybe we want to be more mindful, right? Not just with ourselves, but our children, that the cars can't see if you're behind a car trying to do the crosswalk. So, that's something to be mindful of as well, right?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it gets hectic, and even though you're at a crosswalk, the car might not see you for some reason, or you might not see the car coming. So it's just always better to pay extra attention, especially when you are in congested areas like that and there's a lot of moving parts going on. And again, the more coverage you have on yourself, the more protection you will be able to have for yourself in the event of an unfortunate accident. So, um, classic cars are a great time when people come out with their antique cars. Just wanted to, these cars might be a little bit different to drive. They might not have power steering. They might not have anti-lock brakes. So sometimes they can be a little bit harder to drive or a little bit more unexpected how they're going to handle. So we're just recommending that you do have insurance on your antique cars as well, even though you may not be driving them every day. There are markets out there to insure them, and they're cheaper pricing I see than a regular standard auto policy. And be sure when you have an antique policy, the best way to insure it is to do agreed value. So that way, the value for your precious car is agreed upon between you and the insurer. You can go with a stated value, but that's not going to be a guarantee that in the event of a total loss, you would get that value. But if you have an agreed value on your vehicle, then you would be guaranteed to get that in the event of a loss. So we are going to be having a car show, which we have a flyer attached with Love It. If you guys would.
Our selfless plug, right?
yeah. Whether you have a car to bring in the show or if you just want to come and look, it's a lot of fun. We all get together and socialize. It's a fun day. So we'd love to have you there. Umbrella insurance is, we do recommend that, especially if you do have a lot of assets. You have young drivers, or for anyone for that matter. It gives you an extra protection. The minimum amount you can get is $1 million, and it's pretty inexpensive for what you get. You do have to increase your auto liability limits to a certain amount, and your homeowner's liability limit has to be a certain amount in order to get an umbrella. But it is something that we recommend, that it's inexpensive, and it's worth the cost to protect yourself. So, now on the home front, this one is a big one in the summertime, especially if you have a pool. Everybody likes to come and hang out. It's a lot of fun to get everyone together, but keep in mind when you have your neighbors over and their children, if someone doesn't know how to swim, you definitely would not want to have anyone drown. Or if you're having people coming in and out of your house and you have a ring that disappears, you can insure jewelry on a homeowner's policy, but it doesn't always cover it for mysterious disappearance. If that's the case, if you do have, precious items in your home and you're going to be having people over, you should purchase a personal articles floater. And that can cover anything from jewelry to silver to guns, whatever it may be. But if you have a nice collection for yourself, that's something that you might want to consider. Also in the summertime, another hazard we are bring is trampolines. They've been known to have a lot of accidents. So you want to be sure it has netted. You want to be sure the parents agree, it's okay for their kids to be on the trampoline or to be in your swimming pool. Dogs, if you have a dog and you think he's wonderful and sweet, I'm sure he is, but sometimes they get excited when you have people over and it's not their normal routine and their normal family. So you don't want to have dog bite. Homeowners insurance would cover liability in the case of a dog bite, but just you might want to pay extra attention to that. So those are some things that we wanted to talk about on the home front for the summer. Grilling out, and just be sure when you are grilling out, you keep the small kids away, of course, but being sure the grill is clean, being sure the gas lines are tight, there's no leaks. You don't want to start a fire. If somebody lights up a cigarette and there's a leak in a pipe, that could not be good. So just to do the extra maintenance on your items that you're going to be using. Home burglaries. Today, you can get so many of these little cameras to put in your house, or you can get the Ring bells that have cameras. There's just a lot of, while you're away on your trips and traveling, there's a lot of things you can put on your home to help safeguard it. Just be sure all your gates around your pools are locked. Be sure your house is locked, windows. If you can get these little cameras, packages, get your mail stopped. Be sure your neighbors maybe can watch your house for you. These are all just things that can help for the people that might be watching you that you're not aware of.
Hey, Suzanne, how important would it be if you had a fence going around your pool, right? And you have the gates that you mentioned. How important, if you go on vacation, is it to maybe go ahead and lock your gates? So maybe a neighbor just doesn't take the liberty to come over and swim, or a stranger, an accident happens, then you get sued. It's not that you invited them necessarily, but doesn't mean you still can't be sued and be liable, correct?
Yeah. I mean, the most safeguarding you can do on your part will give you the most defense for if anything does happen.
Right. I think one other thing with fires, these things can easily happen. I love to grill out, and I've had a little flare up from time to time. It's just keeping a little extinguisher by your side. It can be out by the grill, it can be in the cabinet. Just make sure, it's looked at on an annual basis just to make sure that it's going to work as needed, right? But doesn't have to be a big one, just a small one to take out the grease fires, to take out the fires on the grill. Anything like that, I think, can mitigate those risks, right?
Oh, definitely. And that brings up a point. You're always supposed to change out your batteries in your smoke detectors, and to have a fire extinguisher checked once a year in your home. So if you're on vacation, you want to be sure everything's in working order. So, yeah. And that brings up another point, bonfires. Summertime is a great time to be hanging out outside by a bonfire. It's a lot of fun. But, be sure you have a hose nearby, or some water to be able to keep that under control, because in the summer everything is so dry and things can catch on fire a lot more easily than in the other parts of the year. So, and also we were talking about cleaning the grill, because sometimes if you have old grease on there or anything still stuck on there, that can kind of cause a flame up too, maybe when you're not expecting it to. Okay, I think that wraps up everything I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do have a couple of questions that have come in. So don't go anywhere, Suzanne, because someone is asking if they need motorcycle insurance year round, because they do know that in some northern states in particular, that's not required.
A lot of times people may take off the comp and collision portion of their insurance if it's going to be parked in your garage all winter, then you don't need to worry about it being stolen or being in an accident. But if you're going to keep a tag on the bike all year round, then you probably you need to keep the liability on it. But yeah, you can scale back on your coverages though.
Okay. What about summer rain and thunderstorms sometimes cause trees and limbs to fall down? Who is responsible if my tree falls on my neighbor's house?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
It is a good question. And it happens a good bit. So if the tree is alive and it falls, you have no control over that. So, but we are seeing that the person where the tree fell, their insurance is paying, they're splitting the cost actually. So they're paying your insurance will pay to repair your house, but the other people's insurance may pay to remove the tree. Now, if it is a dead tree and it was your responsibility to be taking care of those things and keeping the yard cleaned up and prevent an accident, sometimes they could decline that if it was a dead tree and it wasn't removed and you weren't taking care of your yard. But usually they do cover them, but they do warn about that. To be sure your limbs are trimmed back, dead trees are cut down, upkeep.
Okay.
I think it's just good old fashioned risk mitigation. And it's not for our viewers that we want to be, I guess, ultra protectionist. But let's think about this. To this point, you've accumulated wealth. It could be a lot in your mind. It could be a little. You have things you care about. And you don't want to have them lost or damaged, much less you have something damaged, then you have to have it repaired. Then it's a claim that's filed on your insurance. So your insurance has the opportunity to go up in cost, as well as, the cost to repair or replace. So it's all about just risk mitigation, just taking some good common sense steps to protect yourself if you're at home or if you're away, right? And isn't that the overall theme that we just need to be mindful of?
Well, I think that a lot of us, myself included, tend to be so focused on keeping our rates down and manageable on insurance as well as everything else. So it's always a good reminder to not, what's the old saying, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. And so
Absolutely.
This is certainly one of the times that this comes into play.
I think that's a great point, Stacey.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, Graham, this question is for you. Is there anything in particular that we need to know about current market conditions?
I don't know if there's anything that we need to know per se, but just know that we're coming off a really challenging year last year. And it doesn't matter if it was the equity markets, internationally, domestic, or it's the fixed income bond market. It was a challenging year. If anyone's been on our Lunch and Learns before, we've talked about recessions, expectations, stocks, bonds, all that great stuff. And we basically said this year is going to be a show me year. Show me that the Fed's going to stop. Show me that we're not going into a deep protracted recession. We know the Fed's going to take their foot off the gas. We know that's going to take pressure, can take pressure off of stocks, especially high growth, outdated stocks or long dated stocks with earnings in the future, or stocks that are focused on debt to run their business. So that would help that side of the market. But at the same time, if the Fed starts to lower rates and the market is kind of thinking about this year, they're trying to maybe price in that the Fed's going to lower rates. I don't know if I would be so quick to make that call. I really think that the Fed's probably done most of their job. Inflation's coming down 5%. 5.6% in core inflation. That was from 6%. That was from 9%, over 9% at the height of last year. So I think the rates are going to stay higher for longer. I think that can be a slow, painful process for high growth stocks. Doesn't mean they can't do well, but maybe some of that's already priced in the market. Maybe we'll get into, after earnings here, a little summer doldrums as we prepare ourselves for the latter part or second second half of the year. I guess long story short is stay diversified, stay high quality, and listen, money market funds, they're different, FDIC insured or SIPC. Listen, they have great rates. Ask us about them. They're there. CDs, bonds in general have become more of an option now for diversification than they were just the last decade because the bond values have gone down. What interest that they're paying out has gone up. So if you haven't explored it, you want more information on it, certainly click my calendar that's up. We're happy to talk to you, see what makes sense for you. If nothing else, just educate you. But listen, I think this year is a rebuilding year. We don't think we're going in a deep protracted recession. Doesn't mean we're not going to have one. We always have recessions, but it doesn't have to be deep protracted. Certainly not expecting anything like 2008. We're not in the same environment.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And actually, thanks so much to both of you, Susanne and Graham. These have been great reminders today as we head into the summer months. And thank you to all of our viewers for joining us and getting those questions in. It really makes for an interesting session. I just want to remind everyone that you can get current market updates like Graham just gave us every Monday on our weekly wrap-up. So please tune into those and get the latest and greatest information that's on what's going on in the market. And also a quick reminder that we've scheduled our retirement planning today class for May. So if you or someone you know is at or near retirement age, we would love to share those ins and outs of the retirement planning process with you. So check out our website or on social media, or just give us a call and we'll be happy to provide you with all those details. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month on the weekly on the monthly Lunch and Learn. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.